Hello and welcome back to the channel. On today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you how to cut an overbust corset with a scoop neckline. So if you haven't yet subscribed, please hit on the subscribe button. So first, I'm going to start off with my pattern paper and my tape. Now we're going to go ahead to mark our basic measurement, and for this pattern we're making use of a bust dart. So I'm going to place my tape and mark my shoulder to bust, which is 9, and my shoulder to under bust, which is 12, and I'll go ahead to mark my shoulder to waistline, which is 17.5. And after this, I'm going to go ahead to mark 5 inches from my waistline, which stops at 22 inches. So for this pattern, I'll be using two measurements for the top length. One will be 22 inches, which is 5 inches from my waistline, and then the other one I'll be using 7 inches from my waistline. I'll place my tape again and mark. This is because we have like a pointy edge at the lower part of this pattern. So I'll go ahead and place my I'll place my tape, and I'll go ahead to remark all these measurements, and I'll draw out a straight line on those points. After drawing this out, the next step is to go ahead to mark my shoulder. So this pattern does not have a sleeve, so we'll be dividing our shoulder into two. My shoulder is 14 divided by 2. I have 7 inches, and I'll go down by 1 inch and connect to draw my shoulder slope. After that, I'll go ahead to place my ruler and I'll connect it to the upper part. Next is to find your chest line or armhole, which is your bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches. Mine is 7 inches, and whatever I have on the shoulder, I'll go ahead to mark on that point just to have a straight line. So I'll measure from that point down to my bust point, and I have a difference of 1 inch. Yours might not be 1 inch, it might be 1 inch or more than that. So now I'll go ahead and place my ruler and connect it back to that 7 inches point, which is my armhole. And at those points that I made, I'm going to go ahead to connect it all the way down. And the next step I'm going to take now is to divide my armhole into two. Place your tape this way and find a midpoint. Now go in by half. At the chest line, you're going to mark your bust circumference divided by 4. Mine is 33 divided by 4. I have 8.3, and I'm going to connect from that point down to the half inch I came in and down to the shoulder part. So this is what I have, and the next step is to go ahead to mark my bust span divided by 2. So my nipple to nipple is 7 inches divided by 2. I have 3.5. So I'll go ahead and mark all these at the bust, under bust, waist, and also at the top length. So remember, just like I said, I have two top lengths. One is 22, which is the actual length, and then I marked extra 2 inches, and I later added half to it. That is about 25.5, which will be serving for the parts with the pointy edge. So after this, I'll go ahead and mark 2 inches up. This is where I want the neckline to start, or it will serve as a guide for the neckline. You can also use 1.5. Now I'll mark that nipple to nipple divided by 2, and I'll extend it all the way up. So for this pattern, we are making use of a bust dart also. And after doing that, I'm going to go ahead to mark 1 inch on both sides. So if you're plus size, go ahead and use 1.5 inches. So after making those marks, I'm just going to go ahead to connect. But to avoid confusing you, I'll go ahead to label my pattern since it's not well labeled. So just like I said earlier, I have two top lengths. So after I'm done doing this, I'm just going to go ahead to place my ruler to connect all those points. After connecting, I'll go ahead to place, and I will connect down to the lower part of my pattern this way. So after I'm done doing this, I'll go over to mark out the bustier part of my pattern, and I'm going to place my French cuff touching from the bust down to the underbust, and I'm going to go ahead to repeat this on the other side of my pattern again. So this is what I have, and I'm going to go ahead to mark ½ inch on both sides. So I don't want to have too much curve when you're joining this pattern. You can also use 0.75 inches, which is also okay, or you can just go ahead to use your normal 1 inch or 1.5 for a plus size. But if you don't want to have difficulties when you're joining this, you can use 0.5 or 0.75. It totally depends on you. So I'll just go ahead and I will outline my pattern. So remember, this pattern is actually on fold, and whatever you have on this part, you're also going to repeat it on the other side also. After marking out, the next step is to insert your body measurement. At the bust, I'm going to mark the bust circumference divided by 4, which is 33 divided by 4, which is 8.3. Mark this 1 inch dart, which is half and half on both sides, replace it. At the under bust, I'll mark my under bust circumference divided by 4, which is 28 divided by 4, I have 7. Mark the dart intake, which is 1 inch on both sides, giving you 2, and add your sewing allowance. So on this pattern, my waist is actually 28 and I want to take out 4 inches from it. So 28 minus 4, you have 24. 24 divided by 4, you have 6 inches. So I'll mark that. Go ahead to measure the dart intake of 2 inches. That is 1 inch on both sides, and add ½ inch. So with that, we have successfully taken out 4 inches from our waistline. So going down to the top length, I'll mark the hip circumference divided by 4, and I'll be adding ½ inch for sewing allowance. So now, after I'm done doing this, I'll just go ahead to place my ruler, and I'm going to connect from the bust down to the under bust, down to the waistline, and I'm also going to connect it down to the end of my pattern this way. So after this, I'll use my marker to mark this out to make it more visible for you to see. So after I'm done doing this, I'm just going to go ahead to cut out the rest of my pattern. So after cutting this out, I went ahead to transfer the other darts, just like I said when I was drafting this out. Whatever you have on one side, you're going to trace it out or mark it out on the other side also. So now you're going to go ahead to mark your bust dart. So for my bust dart, mine is 1.5 inches. The bust dart is the difference between your front length and your back length, because at your back there's no bust and in front there's a bust. So to get a detailed tutorial on how to measure your body, you can just go ahead to my other YouTube channel, which is Marky's Closet. You'll see a video on how to do that. So whatever I do on this other side, I will repeat on the other side also, and I'll go ahead to mark out my bust dart. So after I'm done doing this, we are going to go ahead to alter the pattern. So after doing that, we go ahead to alter the neckline. So from the center, I'm going to go down by ½ inch, and from this part you can go up by ½ inch or 1 inch. So I'll be going up by 1 inch, and I'll go ahead to place my curved rule, and I will connect. So at this point, to draw out the other side, you have to blend in your dart this way, and you're going to connect from that point down to that 1 inch you came up. And after you're done doing that, you're going to repeat the same process on this side and also connect, blend in your dart, and you're going to be extending it to the upper part of the pattern also, just like we marked out on the other side. So after I'm done doing this, the neckline, the scoop neckline is ready, and now we're going to also work on the lower part of the pattern. But to make this visible, I'm just going to go ahead to use my marker to mark this out. So now, if you're working on an overbust or Victorian corset, you know that it has multiple darts, and I've gone ahead to snatch my waist already. So what I'm going to do is just to add a style line to this pattern, and I'll take this up. So after I was done doing this, I went ahead to also mark at the other side. So whatever you have on one side, make sure you repeat it at the other side of the pattern. So when I was connecting this, I went ahead to connect it close to the armhole area, and I had to readjust the other pattern just like I did for this. So what I did was just to draw this out and then clean off the first line that I marked initially. Let's go ahead to work on the lower part. So if you notice on this pattern, one side is a bit lower. So from my first top length, I went up by 1 inch. So my first top length is 5 inches away from my waistline. So now I'm just going to go ahead to draw like a little curve. So I'll be using my freehand sketch to do this so that I'll get exactly what I want. So I'm just going to connect this all the way to this part. So you notice that like we have a center. This is from folding our pattern paper. So from that center, I'll go out by ½ inch and I'll go ahead to connect it. And from that point, I'll be going up by 2 inches. That is the first initial top length. So the reason why we added extra 2 inches at the, or 2.5 at the lower part, is just to create that pointy effect we have at the lower part of the dress. So from this part, I'm going to go ahead to connect to the other end. But before I connect, I'll be going up by 2 inches from my first top length, which is 5 inches away from my waistline. And from there, I'm going to connect to the other end, just like we have on our pattern. So after this, I'll go ahead to use my marker to draw this out, and I'll be cutting out my pattern, including the part that has a bust dart. So when I'm cutting out my bust dart, I'm just going to blend it up this way. So if it's your first time viewing my channel and if you haven't yet subscribed, please don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Give this video a thumbs up, and if you have any question regarding this particular pattern drafting, please don't forget to leave your question at the comment section. So after I'm done cutting out, this is what I have. So if you want this in a bustier method, this is how you're going to leave it, but you can go ahead to slit it. So I'm just going to leave it this way, but if you're sewing it as a Victorian corset, go ahead to cut the other part. So now let's move over to the back pattern. So I'm just going to go ahead to mark out the basic measurements. So remember, just like I said, we used a bust dart. So my bust dart is 1.5 inches. So after marking my shoulder to bust, which is 9 inches, so for my waistline for the back is not going to be 17 inches. My waistline for the front is 17 inches. So what I will do is that waistline for the front, which is 17 inches, minus 1.5, I have 15.5. So that is that 1.5 inches that I marked for the front. So after doing this, I'll go ahead to mark 5 inches, just like we did for the front pattern, just that the back pattern has, for here I'll just be using 5 inches after the waistline. I won't add the 2 inches because we are not creating any pointy edge at the back. So after I was done doing that, I went ahead to rule out a straight line. So to draw my dart, I went ahead to mark the nipple to nipple, or bust band divided by 2, which is the same 3.5, and after that I went ahead to draw a straight line connecting. So I'll go ahead and mark ½ inch on both sides of this pattern. So after I'm done doing that, I'll come down by 1 inch from my bust point and I'll connect it upwards from that ½ inch on the waistline, and I'll also connect at the lower part of my pattern this way. So after I'm done doing that, I'll mark my body circumference, my bust divided by 4, and I'll add my sewing allowance at the waist. The waistline you use for the front, that's what you're going to mark. Replace your dart intake and add your sewing allowance. Go ahead to mark your hip circumference divided by 4 and add ½ inch for your sewing allowance. And now I'm going to connect from the upper part of my pattern down to the waist and down to the hip point. So after I'm done doing this, I will divide this into two just to create that multiple style line. Just like I said, it's either you use a multiple style line or you use a multiple dart, like using your dart to snatch your waistline. So after you're done doing that, you're going to be marking the lacing bar area. For the lacing bar area, I'm using 1.5 inches, which is not a standard, and I'm just going to go ahead to draw out a straight line and make a dot to indicate that is the lacing bar area. From there, I'll come down by ½ inch and I'll connect it all the way up. And after I'm done connecting, I'm going to go ahead to use my marker to label this out. So after I'm done doing this, the next step I'm going to take is to go up by 1 inch. So I'll be using this same pattern to cut for both sides of my back pattern. Remember, for the front part, one side went up by 1 inch and the other side went up by 2 inches. So first, I'll go ahead to mark the part that went up by 1 inch. And don't forget to label your pattern for the front. Very important, because it might be very confusing. So I'll just go ahead to cut out what I have at this point. So after I'm done marking this, I'll go ahead also to just cut out the dart lines that are in between this pattern, and I will be reducing the lower part of this pattern because it is the back, to make it easier for you to sit down or comfortable when you're sitting down. And I'll just go ahead to cut this all the way out. So after I'm done doing this, just like I said, we're going to use this to cut the other side. So you place this and cut one side of your pattern, and after that, to cut the other side, you have already taken out 1 inch. So what you do again is to place your tape and you're going to take out another 1 inch, making it 1 inch plus 1 inch will give you 2 inches. And I'll just reconnect it this way, and I'm going to cut out. So you're now going to use this to cut out the other side. So if you find this tutorial very interesting and educative, please don't forget to hit on the subscribe button, and see you in our next video. Thanks.